Good morning, everyone. Today is day 2 of the week, and we are here for our first read aloud of the week. So last week we read some nonfiction texts, but last week's nonfiction were narrative nonfiction. So the books that we read or you listened to last week were kind of told like a story, but they were nonfiction. This week, our stories are also going to be nonfiction, but these nonfiction texts are called informational text. So I want you to think about that word informational. What word do you hear that you've heard before? Informational. So narrative tells a story, but just informational nonfiction is going to give us information. Now, I have our book here today, and our book is by an author named Seymour Simon. And Seymour Simon is actually going to be the author of today's book and day 4's book. Now, as you can see on the cover, we are going to be reading about penguins. So today's story is going to give lots and lots of facts about penguins. So it's going to share information with us about where penguins live, what they eat, how to protect them, their habitats. Okay, so lots and lots of information about penguins. So as we read, I want you to be thinking about what you are learning about penguins, so what new information you're learning about penguins, and then by the end, I want you to be able to come up with at least 2 more questions that you still have about penguins. All right, so as we read, we're going to look at our pictures, and because this is nonfiction, our pictures are not called illustrations. They're called photographs, which means they are real pictures. So we're going to use the photographs and the text, which is the writing, to help us understand the text. So to help us make meaning of the information in the text. All right, and then at the end of our video, just like always, I will show you guys what your writing prompt is that will go along with today's text. So as we are reading, I want you to pay a very close attention to the photographs and to the text and see what new information you might learn about penguins. All right, by Seymour Simon. A nice little picture of some penguins here. And the caption says those are called Adelie Penguins. So that's a type of penguin. Then also over here, we've got Emperor Penguin chicks. All right, I'll show you the picture first. All right, penguins are champion swimmers and divers, but they are not fish. And they are not aquatic mammals, such as dolphins. Penguins are birds because they have feathers, and only birds have feathers. Like birds, they lay their eggs and raise their chicks on land, but they don't look or fly like most other birds. Instead, they seem to fly through the water, and they spend much of their lives at sea. All penguins live in the southern hemisphere, from frozen Antarctica to the warmer waters of the Galapagos Islands near the equator. Penguins are defenseless, so they usually live in out-of-the-way places, safe from most enemies. Since penguins are very social, their nesting areas, called rookeries, may contain thousands of pairs of birds crowded up against one another, such as these king penguins that we see in the picture. Even at sea, penguins usually swim and feed in groups. The penguin colonies on Antarctica are huge, containing 20 million or more penguins at times during the year. So here, we have this big group of penguins, and these are called king penguins. Okay, let's see if I can lift this so you guys can see. So these are called king penguins. All right, now here we have a couple different questions. So on this first page, our author, Seymour Simon, introduces you to penguins, much as he did with other stories that we're going to read. What are some things that he tells you about penguins on this page? I want you to take some think time. I want you to pause the video and take some think time. We've already learned quite a few things just from this first page. What are some things that you might have just learned about penguins? Penguins have big heads and short, thick necks. Some penguins have crests and differently colored heads and bills. Black, blue, or gray feathers usually cover the upper parts of their bodies. Their legs are set low on their bodies, and they waddle from side to side as they walk. If people waddled like penguins, they would fall over easily. But penguins rarely seem to trip and fall down. The 17 penguin species live in many different places, but all penguins feed at sea like this emperor penguin. Some dive as deep as 1,500 feet to find food. Their main meals are small fish and squid. Antarctic penguins also feed on krill. A penguin's tongue and throat have stiff, backward-facing barbs that help grip slippery food and keep it from sliding out. When a penguin swallows food underwater, it also ingests salt water. Special glands drain the salt water into the penguin's nose. The salt water runs off its nose when the penguin surfaces. So here we have an emperor penguin, and it is going to get something to eat. Paddle-like flippers, a short wedge-shaped tail, and webbed feet help make penguins good swimmers. Some penguins spend 3/4 of their lives in the water, occasionally for months at a time. Penguins have a streamlined body shape in the water. A mid-sized penguin can slice through the water like an arrow cutting through the air. The penguin hunches its head into its shoulders and presses its feet close to its body against its tail to help steer. In the water, the motion of a penguin's flippers resembles the wing movements of birds in flight. Their heavy, solid bones help penguins stay underwater and keep them from bobbing to the surface. Penguin eyes are large and help them see clearly underwater as well as on land. Penguins can stay underwater for 10 to 15 minutes before coming to the surface to breathe. Most penguins can swim 5 or 6 miles per hour. However, some could put on a blazing burst of speed of as much as 15 miles per hour. The fastest a person has ever run in 1 hour is a little over 13 miles. Okay, so on this page, we have the Adelie penguins again, different species. And here we have king penguins. So here we have our post-it, and this just says, I want you to think about some new things that you've now learned about penguins. Already, we've learned a lot of different facts. So I want you to take some time right now to kind of review some different things that you might not have known about penguins that you've learned since reading this book. Even though penguins spend much of their lives at sea, they all return to land to lay eggs. The season for mating depends upon the penguin species and habitat. In temperate zones, breeding season is often in the spring. During the mating season, penguins head for a rookery. When he is ready to mate, the male stands, arches his back, and stretches out his flippers. He makes loud calls and waves his head and flippers. He bows, struts about, and may offer a rock as a gift. If fights break out, the males use their bills and flippers to hit their rivals. When penguins like the king penguins on the left find their mates, they bond by touching necks and slapping each other on the back with their flippers. By singing to each other, they learn to recognize each other's voice. A penguin may stay with its mate for years or as long as the pair has chicks together. So they're putting their necks together, which means they're getting ready to mate, which means they're getting ready to have some chicks. Okay, and they'll stay together for as long as they want to continue to have chicks. In about 4 days, most kinds of penguins lay 2 eggs. Both parents take turns sitting on the eggs for about 4 or more weeks, depending on the species of penguin. During incubation, the brood patch, an area of skin on the lower abdomen, becomes swollen and warm. The chick uses its egg tooth, a small point on the tip of the bill, to break through the eggshell. Within a few weeks, the chick grows feathers that provide insulation against the cold. While their parents search for food at sea, chicks often stay in groups called creches for safety and warmth. So here we see the egg, and the mom or dad penguin is sitting on it to keep it warm. And again, this is the Adelie penguin. Chicks beg for food from any passing adult or even other chicks. So adults identify their own chicks, like these king penguin chicks, by recognizing their distinctive calls. When a chick pecks around a parent's bill, the parent feeds it partially digested food from the parent's stomach. When chicks are ready to leave the nest, they shed their first feathers and develop waterproof feathers. Now they are fledglings. Before long, they will make their first journey to the sea to build up their body fat. Besides the lack of food and bad weather, penguin chicks have to contend with many dangers, particularly from predators such as mustelids, rats, dogs, pigs, gulls, sheathbills, and giant petrels. But the skua, an Antarctic seabird, is a chick's worst enemy. While in flight, a skua can pick up and swallow a small chick in a single gulp. On the ground, a powerful skua can catch and drag a good-sized chick away from the protection of the colony. Adult penguins have no natural enemies on land, but at sea they are preyed upon by leopard seals, killer whales, fur seals, sea lions, and sharks. A leopard seal, which is at the right, swims along the edges of the ice pack or hides under ice floes, waiting for penguins to dive into the water. All right, give me 1 second, guys. All right, we're back. Hopefully you can see these pictures a little bit better now. All right. Emperors, the largest penguins in the world, stand up to 4 feet high and weigh as much as 100 pounds. The emperors spend cold, windy winters on the open Antarctic ice, 100 or more miles inland. To stay warm, emperors clump together in huge huddled masses. They take turns moving to the inside of the group, where they're partly protected from the frigid winds that howl at more than 100 miles per hour along the ice. After a courtship of several weeks, a female emperor lays a single egg and leaves it atop the feet of her mate. She immediately departs for the distant sea to feed. For about 65 days, through blinding storms and sometimes below freezing temperatures, the father balances the egg on his feet and keeps it warm by covering it with his brood patch. Finally, the mothers return at the time the chicks are hatching. They take over the feedings, and the males head to sea. 7 or 8 weeks later, the chicks are large enough to make their trip. King penguins are second in size only to emperors. A king is almost 3 feet tall and can weigh nearly 35 pounds. It lives on the cold, rocky coasts of islands surrounding Antarctica. The king penguin has golden orange swatches on its neck and around its head, a white belly, and a blue-black back. Kings don't waddle the way most penguins do. Instead, they run fairly quickly on their feet. So here's that yellowish orange, golden orange. Nesting colonies of up to 10,000 kings form onshore. Each penguin keeps its neighbor at an exact but close distance away. If a neighbor gets too close, it gets a nasty slap from a flipper or a jab from a beak. Here we have a caption that tells us that this is a king penguin. Gentoo penguins can grow as tall as 30 inches and can weigh up to 13 pounds. Their colorful orange bill sets them apart from other penguins. Also, no other penguin has such a big tail. So here's the orange beak they're talking about. Most gentoos live in large colonies along the coasts of Antarctica. Gentoos stay with their mates throughout the year. Mating pairs usually build nests of pebbles on bare ground. Year after year, they may return to the same inland nest to lay their 2 eggs. So these have kind of a silly name. Macaroni penguins get their name from the long orange, yellow, and black feathery crests that rise above their eyes. So these things right here. So if you see these on a penguin, you know that they're the macaroni penguins. They were named after a macaroni dandy, a hairstyle that was fashionable in the 18th century. Macaronis stand about 27 inches high and weigh about 9 pounds. They live around Antarctica, mostly on South Georgia, Crozet, Kerguelen, and Heard Islands. Breeding season for macaronis starts in December, when mating pairs lay 2 different sized eggs. The first egg is half the size of the second egg and usually does not hatch. Rockhoppers, the smallest of the Antarctic penguins, are slightly taller than 20 inches and weigh only 5.5 pounds. They live among the macaronis. Like the macaronis, they have feathered crests on their heads and have similar nesting and breeding habits. But rockhoppers are more aggressive than macaronis. Here we have the Adelie penguin again. Adelie penguins were named after the wife of Dumont d'Urville, one of the early explorers of the Antarctic. Adelies are small penguins about 27 inches in height and weigh about 10 or 11 pounds. Adelies spend the harsh Antarctic winter months near the outer edges of the ice pack, where it is slightly warmer. They often stay at sea, resting in groups on pack ice and icebergs. As summer approaches, they breed on the coast or on barren island beaches. Adelie rookeries range in size from less than 100 to hundreds of thousands of chicks. Chinstrap penguins are the same size as Adelies. They get their name from a thin black line that circles under the chin, like a strap on a helmet. They breed in slightly warmer waters on islands off the coast of Antarctica. One of the largest colonies on Deception Island may have up to 1 million chinstraps. Chinstraps are among the boldest and most aggressive of all penguins. And down here we see this one's called the Magellanic penguin. Other penguin species. The royal penguins have yellow, orange, and black crests. Royals are found only on rocky Macquarie Island in the Pacific Ocean, south of New Zealand. They are the largest of the crested penguins. Another type is the erect crested penguins. They have long, spiky feathers that stand straight up from their heads. They live in the subantarctic regions of southern New Zealand. Another species is the blue or little or fairy penguins, and they're the smallest of all the penguins. Blues stand 16 inches high and weigh only 2 pounds. They live in the warmer waters around Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand. Magellanic penguins, which is like in this picture right here, they are the largest of the warm weather penguins. They live on the stormy and rocky shores of southern Argentina and Chile. Then we have the yellow-eyed penguins, and yellow-eyed penguins are the third largest penguins. And they have yellow-orange cat-like eyes. They live along the coastal shores of New Zealand and neighboring islands. Despite the harsh weather, the penguins that live in and around Antarctica, such as these Chinstrap penguins, survive in large numbers. But penguins that live in climates that are more temperate are not as fortunate. Some kinds are in danger of becoming extinct. What does that word mean, extinct? If something becomes extinct, what do you think that means? There are only a few thousand Galapagos penguins left because weather and ocean changes, known as El Niño, have depleted the numbers of fish that they eat. South of Australia, only a few thousand Fiordland penguins remain due to the lack of fish. The development of coasts, overfishing, and pollution have also affected the penguin population. Pollution in ocean waters reduces the ability of penguins to lay eggs that hatch successfully. Some researchers estimate that tens of thousands of penguins are killed each year by oil spills. Along the Australian and New Zealand coasts, cats, dogs, and other animals feed on penguin chicks. Each penguin species struggles in a different way to survive. By learning more about penguins, we can begin to understand how to help them and other endangered sea animals to survive in our changing world. The end. Okay, so again, we see a penguin with all of its chicks. And that is the end of our text today. So now I'm going to show you what your writing will be for today. This is day 2 writing. In your folder, you will see day 2 at the top. It will look similar to all of your other writing that you have been doing, but right here it has directions. It says write 5 facts about penguins that you learned and 2 questions that you still have. Now, all throughout that text, there were lots and lots of facts. If you want to write more than 5, that's okay. But I want you to at least write 5 facts that you have learned. Then I want you to think about things that you might not know about penguins still, and things that our text might not have told us. And after you write your 5 facts or more, I want you to come up with 2 questions, 2 things that you're still wondering about penguins. And I want you to write those at the end of your writing. All right? So you have your writing assignment for today. You can go back and listen to the text to find some facts if you can't remember all of them. Remember at least 5, but you can do more than 5. And don't forget to also write out 2 questions that you still have about penguins. All right, good luck, and I'll see you guys on day 4 to read about another Seymour Simon animal. Have a great day.